vivir, romper la prisión y salir corriendo.
Good afternoon and welcome to Animal Nation. I'm your host, Felicity Anderson. Well, it was a big weekend for vegan festivals with both Adelaide and Melbourne holding events that attracted over 20,000 people. Animal Liberation Victoria held its inaugural Spring Vegan Festival at the iconic and tragic meat market in North Melbourne. 3,500 people came through the doors, proving the world is changing. On today's show, we will be meeting Parrish James, a vegan and cyclist. Parrish has just returned from cycling around Australia as part of the Cycling for Change campaign, raising awareness of animal rights-related issues and funds for Animal Activists Australia. And of course, as usual later in the show, for compassion's sake, my plea for a kinder world. You're listening to Animal Nation on OCR FM. Stick around to meet Parrish James after this short break.
Quiero vivir. Quiero vivir.
Welcome back to Animal Nation. Now, Parrish James has just completed a fully self-supported bike ride around Australia as part of Animal Activists Australia's Cycling for Change campaign. His goal was to not only raise funds for animal rights campaigns, but also to raise awareness about the issues facing other species. Parrish rode an incredible 16,500 Ks in just 78 days, carrying all his food, supplies and camping gear. We had a chat last week about his journey. Enjoy. Hi Parrish and welcome to Animal Nation.
Hi Felicity, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me. Now, before we talk about your cycling trip around Australia, can you tell us why you became vegan?
First became vegetarian before I was vegan. I didn't really know about the dairy and egg industries. I guess when I first was exposed to, we go in a supermarket and we just see things as products. I had a connection when I was younger, when I was probably about 10 or 11, that it wasn't right to eat animals, and just because I live in Australia and everyone eats animals, I just couldn't do it myself. So it wasn't until I was a bit older I got into vegetarianism through lots of different ways, but then I also saw a mass slaughter of animals in Indonesia when I was about 19, 20, and then that just turned me vegetarian straight away. And then as I got more exposed to learning about, cows only give dairy when they're pregnant, and I learned all about the kind of impacts of that and then byproducts of the industry, and then it just made more sense to be vegan. So I've been vegan for 5 to 6 years, around that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so common for so many of us that it's that slow transition, I think.
Yeah, definitely. It's the goal for everyone to be vegan, obviously. But you have to cut, because you have so many habits, that are built in from your culture. And you can't just be, some people can just go cold turkey and just give up everything, but and that's ideal, but sometimes some people have to do it in stages.
Yeah, and I think social pressures affect us all differently too.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's one of the major things, but the hardest thing about being vegan is dealing with other people, really, because humans are herd animals, so we want to be socially accepted, and I kind of knew all that stuff because I'd studied psychology and marketing, so there's a lot of that pressure on other people because everyone wants to be accepted, so.
That's right, and I think as activists, it's, we can't underestimate the power of that and how much of an obstacle it is for so many people.
Totally, yeah, that is the major obstacle at the end of the day for people. It's the convenience and the what they're used to doing, and then taste, and then social pressure and all that type of thing. So, and there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear in it as well, in terms of vitamin this, vitamin that, vitamin this, and people are just sometimes too much decisions and too much effort for them. But it's very simple, really, at the end of the day.
It really is.
Complicated, yeah.
Tell us all about why you decided to ride your bike around Australia.
There's a lot of reasons I decided to ride my bike around Australia. I started working in a bike shop when I was 13, and I'd been in and out the bike industry. And I started riding BMX and got into touring as I got older and mountain bike riding. But touring, so I'd already ridden my bike around New Zealand, and I'd ridden my bike around the UK, and I'd ridden across Europe, and I'd ridden around Indonesia. And, we live in Australia, and it's a big island. and sometimes we don't really get out of the city we live in, and I wanted to ride my bike around, and I thought it was I know a bit about nutrition and health, and I worked in outdoor education as well, and I wanted to show people that you can be vegan in the most difficult situations still without a problem, and it's beneficial to your health and recovery and your performance. So yeah, I just thought that I would do it for Animal Activists Australia and kind of put on display that I was going to ride my bike around Australia, doing over 200 Ks a day, completely vegan, all my gear and also all the food I eat, and self-supported.
Being 100% self-supported throughout the entire journey, how did you go feeding yourself, finding the right foods and enough foods? Obviously, you can't carry everything you need with you.
Yeah, so there's an old saying in cycling, eat before you're hungry, drink before you're thirsty, and I guess there's so much confusion in diet out there these days. People make a lot of money out of, all types of supplements and diet stuff. But I kind of knew how far it was between each town, and also knew how many calories I would need, and also the amount of water. But then there's other things you have to think about in terms of, you have a day of extreme headwinds, where it's going to slow down like a lot, and then you might have traffic issues, or you might have a place that's hillier, so it's going to slow down. So you have to look at all those types of things. And also, once you've been vegan for a while, you kind of know what in a supermarket that you can and can't eat. You've already looked on the back of every packaging, So, you just kind of look at staples, and there's a lot of carbohydrate phobia out there, and anyone that cycles knows there's a thing called bonking, which is when you run out of glycogen in your muscles. So it's always important to put a lot of carbohydrates in. And that's why we see today a lot of people aren't eating enough, and they're drinking like coffee and stuff like that, because everyone's kind of scared to get fat or this or whatever. But at the end of the day, you just want to put the calories in your body and always be exercising and staying hydrated, and you don't need stimulants like that. But yeah, I could go on forever, but to digress, I looked at what foods, because normally I cycle to like in the UK or New Zealand, I've always taken a stove, so I wanted to do Australia without a stove, so no cooking as well, which would make it extra difficult. So there was, there's a lot of things you can eat in a supermarket these days that are ready to go, just anything from oats to cereals, so you can get pre-cooked rice, all this type of stuff. So,
and even in the most remote of locations.
Yeah, so the most remote, like when I was travelling across Queensland and down Western Australia, you just have roadhouses, and the roadhouses don't have much options. So sometimes it's just like loaves of bread, jam, peanut butter sandwiches, oats, and then whenever you can get fresh fruit and vegetables, you just get them in when you can, like a juice or... Yeah, it's not like you have to hit every single micro and macro vitamin every single day. It's okay to miss out on some day and then get some more the next day. Yeah, sometimes, a lot of the time, like oats was a very good staple because it was highly compactable and high in calories, and it had it's protein, fats, carbohydrates, it's a whole food. Yeah, so lots of that, and then the hardest thing, you can't carry like bananas with you or anything like that. So dates were really good to carry. They're high in magnesium, they're also high in calories. They also don't get destroyed by the weather. Yeah, so a lot of those foods, which are healthy. Societies have lived off oats. Societies have lived off dates as well. So all those kind of staples. They were the easiest to get in Australia. So.
I mean, we're so used to having just such a huge variety of every single kind of food you could imagine, and we just take that so completely for granted, and yet so many people throughout the world live basically on one or two staples, and everything else they have is, is a treat or something exceptional. We certainly have a lot to take for granted.
They've got so much choice out there. If you've travelled a lot, and you know a bit about anthropology and history of cultures, and the way of cultivating land to increase populations in areas which allowed us to evolve as a society. If you go to places like Africa, they're just living off certain grains, or Asia's of rice, and you got indigenous people in Australia lived off a lot of yam daisies, which many people know about, and then you have corn in Central America. They even had a corn god in Central America. If you ever go and visit Mexico, so these staples play a big role around the world. There's even reports of the gladiators, they lived off barley, and they were called barley men.
I read not that long ago that the gladiators ate a predominantly vegetarian diet.
Yeah, totally.
Because they were slaves, and they were, they obviously weren't given luxury foods like flesh.
Well, yeah, it's always like that. The people that live the longest are always the peasants and stuff, because they don't have access to the kings and queens food and all that type of stuff, and also they exercise more. So, but yeah, all the blue zones around the world, they live off of plant staples. You've got the Okawakan people in Japan. They eat predominantly sweet potatoes, 99% vegan, high carbohydrate diet. Once you kind of figure that all out, and you don't realise society's like pushing protein so hard, and you do a bit of exercise, you figure out that there's a lot of misinformation about protein and all this other stuff. And
yeah, the protein myth is just outrageous propaganda.
yeah, there's just a lot of fear in food for people, you know, especially the carbohydrate, the low carb kind of thing that came around for a while. And then you just have to look. If you travel around and you go to a country that eat the most amount of carbohydrates, they're the leanest places in the world. And the people that aren't eating much carbohydrates often have a slow metabolism. It puts more stress on your organs. And it's a slower releasing energy. And, you know, so it's just once you kind of figure out the carbohydrate thing, and I think that keeps a lot of people away from veganism. They kind of don't understand that they can eat carbohydrates and it's healthy and it's good. And it's, you know, no carbohydrates come in animal products. And it's physiologically that's what we're made to eat. So it's carbohydrates and plant food. You know, jaw moves side to side. Once people recognise that, they kind of realise that eating animals it's like a survival mechanism, and it's a fight or flight kind of thing. It could go on for ages.
Yeah. What sort of response did you get from the locals, Parrish?
You know, I've cycled to it a lot in different countries, and a lot of people do cycle touring solo as just like a hobby or like a way of tourism. And I think it's a great way to travel because you really get to feel all the uphills and downhills and see everything in between. And I always have this saying, it's like a traveller doesn't know where they're going and a tourist doesn't know where they've been. But yeah, the reaction is often like, oh, you're doing this for a fundraiser. You know, it's a very touchy subject, you know, veganism and stuff for people, because I think deep down a lot of people know what they're doing is possibly wrong to animals, and they don't like to be confronted by that. So a lot of times I said, I don't know if you really want to know what I'm raising money for or raising awareness for. And then, so I tried to kind of like not get into discussions with people, because also I wanted to ride my bike and not be there debating people things that like, because me personally, I only give effort to people debating if they're actually open-minded and stuff. So it's the reaction was good and bad. You know, like I didn't say that I was doing it for vegan activism. I just said I was raising awareness for animal cruelty and environmental degradation. So that was like and most people were like, "Oh, that's great. But then if I said anything towards veganism, it was often standoffish, especially because the places I was riding my bike through is all cattle country. So
I was going to say they'd be relying so almost completely on animal agriculture. So
yeah, you got all these areas. It's just cattle stations. So it was, you know, I'm aware of what goes on in cattle stations, but it was even more confronting going out there and being in such a harsh environment and seeing, because I'd lived in India before, and there's Brahman cows that have been taken from India to Australia, and they're the cow that gets sent overseas, live export, and just seeing them living out there, they're the most peaceful animal. They're considered a god in India because they're so peaceful, and just seeing them in the environment they're living in, I was just like, oh. So it was very disheartening in that regard, and seeing a lot of roadkill. And but people's attitudes varied depending on who they were, what their experience was. Some roadhouses, I mentioned it, and they were going to give me free food at the start because I told them I was doing it for a fundraiser. I was like, okay, we'll give you food. And what's a fundraiser? I was like, I don't know if you want to know. And then as soon as I told them, they were just real angry, extremely standoffish, and just like, yeah. And I just said, look, I'm just here to buy some food. It's fine, you know. Like, yeah, that was a bit of a disappointment up in the northwest there. Some people just, yeah.
Did you ever feel that there was any risk to yourself? Your safety?
Not really. I never liked when people are upset, so I was just like, hey, there's nothing to be upset about. So I just said, I'll just buy the food if that's the case. But because I've spent a lot of time outdoors, people like crocodiles, you know, snakes, there's all those kind of potential hazards. And I see, like, when you go outdoors or you do anything, there's always potential hazards. So they're just potential hazards if you're not aware of them, you know, like crocodile's a potential hazard, but it's only a potential hazard if you go in the river. But if you know that they're there, you know, it's just like getting sunburnt is a potential hazard. Dehydration is a potential hazard. So you think of ways of stopping these hazards. You know, you cover up, stop sunburn, you stay hydrated so they don't dehydrate. The major danger really that we can't control is people driving. So the way that I minimise that would be like wear safety colours and also have a mirror. Yeah, those types of things. But yeah, no, I didn't really feel unsafe. I'm pretty comfortable outdoors.
Because how many Ks were you riding a day?
Anywhere from 200 to 400. So it was a bit of time on the bike.
Wow, what was your 400k stretch?
I was lucky to have a bit of a tailwind coming onto Nullarbor from Norseman. So had a little bit of a tailwind there, and I thought, because the Nullarbor is like a bit of a long stretch. But a lot of people see it as the most vacant area of Australia, but the west coast is just as kind of empty. But I thought, I might as well take advantage of this tailwind. So I went from Norseman, I think, through the longest straight road in the world, and then onto, I can't remember the town, there's no towns, the roadhouse that I went past. I camped somewhere, but I never pushed myself into a limit where it was going to affect my total trip, because, you know, I could push myself further, but you have to recover, so you need to get enough sleep, and you need to eat enough, and you need to hydrate enough. They're the main things, really, you know, sleep, hydration.
Yeah. How many rest days did you have throughout?
Well, I had a rest day in Cairns because my bike had a bit of an issue, so I had to get a bike replacement. And then I had a rest day in Broome, and I had 2 days off in Fremantle because I had some friends over from overseas that happened to be in Fremantle at the time, so I took 2 days off. And one of those days involved riding my bike around Rottnest Island, so yeah, I pretty much rode my bike every day, except for in Cairns when I had to get my bike replaced.
How many months did it take you?
It took me under 3 months, so I think it was like 80 days, 80-something days. Yeah, so it was like a lot of people think it would be, you know, a bit rushed, but I also wanted to, as a challenge, but the thing is, if you do it I didn't want to spend the year doing it, nothing against doing it for a year, that'd be great, and there's a lot of things to go and see off the side of the road, but also there's bigger gaps in between. If you're going to go slower, you need to carry more food, you need to carry more water.
That's right.
Yeah, so, yeah, I just said 200 k's a day is like a good amount for me to ride. That's like, you know, nothing too crazy, but it's still like pushing yourself, and it's still showing that, you know, your recovery from eating plant food, vegan diet is good, and you can continue on. Like, I could have kept going, really. I could have gone out for another lap. But, I thought, no, I probably should do something else. I like riding a bike, but after, you know, every day straight, yeah, maybe have a couple of days off. But I went for a ride yesterday and did 100-something k's. So I like cycling because I kind of see it as like meditation on wheels. It's good, you know, good space to get out and just, you kind of see more, you smell everything, you see things, and yeah, it's healthy and it's a good way to get around. I lived in Holland, so and I've always been around bikes, so I'm just very pro-bike.
Yeah, it's amazing. Holland has just got it all right, don't they? The bike culture.
Yeah, I just think it just makes for a better society. You know, you come out of your house, you're going to see people. We walk out of the house today and people get in cars, and a lot of people don't know their neighbours, and if you're riding around, it makes a safer place. People are always out on their bikes. People are always being seen.
Yeah, there's a much stronger sense of community. Yeah,
and also the health benefits. You don't have to be punishing yourself on a bike, riding long distance. You can, as long as you're moving your body. Even if we look at getting better infrastructure where you can take bikes on trains easier, you have like government incentives for bike purchases and all that sort of stuff, which happens in certain countries. It kind of promotes cycling more, and yeah, I just think that's a good thing for people and society, and appreciation for nature and staying healthy and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
You must have met and seen so many different wild animals along the way. Do you have a particular memory that stands out from the journey?
Yeah, that's the other great thing about cycling on a bike is you get to see all the animals and you're not making much sound. So a lot of the animals don't see you coming, which is, you know, animals are always on the lookout to see if something's coming. They're very aware. What did I see? I've seen pretty much everything. I guess the main one that was really cool, I really great was bird life in Australia definitely thrived. So there's a lot of different birds everywhere you go. But I saw, heaps of emus, heaps of kangaroos, all the different types of wallabies. Probably the main one that stood out that I hadn't really seen much before was like dingoes in the morning, often at the side of the road, So they're up northwest, and you could hear them like yapping to each other in the morning, in the night time. That was really nice. Saw some crocodiles, freshwater, saltwater, lots of different snakes on the side of the road, so browns, tigers, some pythons, and also bunjil, which is like the crater bird for the Aboriginal people, which is the big wedge-tailed eagles. I'm pretty sure it's wedge-tailed eagles. Yeah, it is. It's like the crater for Aboriginal, but I saw like a huge one in where was it, in WA. I was like, that is the biggest bird I've ever seen. It was sitting on a tree, and it made the tree look like a shrub.
Wow.
Yeah, so
they just get huge, don't they?
Yeah, and I think there's obviously a lot of animals that have been hit by cars, so they kind of get a feed easy. But yeah, lots of bird life, and then even camels. I saw some camels going along the Nullarbor. But yeah, pretty much, I got a feeling I saw most Australian animals. Yeah, everything. But the dingoes are probably the main thing.
Yeah. What a treat.
Yeah, it was amazing. Unfortunately, most animals you see are the ones that have been hit by cars, unfortunately. But yeah, the dingoes were definitely the main. Yeah, the hardest thing to see is the dingo.
Oh well, one last question, Parrish. If you could say one thing to the not yet vegans listening, what would it be?
Yeah, just follow your heart and just try to get as much information about. I would say actually, I'd probably say see yourself in others. Imagine what it's like to be in the animal's position. And being vegan isn't difficult if you're thinking about other people opposed to, your own taste buds and stuff. If you think about the people that are the victims or the animals, and get to know these animals. We've been kind of kept away from sheep, cows, pigs, chickens and stuff like that. If you just get to spend some time with them and learn about them, and it's only going to benefit your health and the environment and your appreciation for food. I reckon when people go vegan, they start appreciating food way more, and I've seen it. Like, you just have this way better appreciation for all types of food, from fruits to different types of vegetables to different types of things that can be made vegan, because you can get everything vegan. You want a hamburger, you can get that. You can get a hot dog. Just, educate yourself, and it's only a benefit for you and the animals and the environment. So,
perfect.
I guess that's not really one thing.
But that's perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, thanks for talking to Animal Nation, and I wish you all the best.
All right, thanks, Felicity. Have a lovely day.
You too, Parrish. Bye.
See ya. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Parrish James. Anyone wanting to know more about Animal Activists Australia can visit their Facebook page. I've popped that up on the Animal Nation page. And if you would like to support Cycling for Change, go to chuffed.org/project/cycling-for-change. Those details will also be on the Animal Nation page. So coming up, for compassion's sake, but first, here's Yusuf Islam, aka Cat Stevens, with If You Want to Sing Out.